The first time I ever stood on a stage, I was 11 and I was in the sixth grade. And I had to recite this poem for a Girl Scout event in front of hundreds of people. Needless to say, I was a nervous wreck. I was shaking. I didn't know if I could do it. Last minute, I was like wondering why I got myself into that mess and why I was there in the first place. But I got through it, and I realized that in spite of the way I felt, I was able to do certain things, right? So I learned from a very young age that there are things outside of what we might feel that can either propel us forward or keep us stuck, right? And at that time, it was my dad's voice in my head that helped me move forward and do a lot of things. But as I grew older and as I continued to have opportunities to speak in front of people and to be on stages and to do different things that I've done in my life, I realized that there are certain things that I do sometimes that kill any chance I have of moving forward and developing a sense of confidence or a feeling of confidence around what I'm doing. They just kill it right at the root and make it almost impossible for me to move forward and do the things I want to do. And as I've been working with clients and helping people overcome this sense or this feeling of lack of confidence and move forward in whatever it is that they're trying to do, I've identified four main confidence killers that I want to share with you today. Now, before we dive right in, I just want to clarify, if you have heard me speak before about confidence, you know that I don't buy into this notion that most gurus and experts sell us or try to sell us, that you have to have this great confidence before you move forward, that if you don't have confidence, you can't do certain things, right? But when we look at the confidence killers that I'm going to be talking about today, these are things that not just kill your feeling or your sensation of having enough confidence to move forward, but they are things that will stop you dead on your tracks if you're trying to do something new and you don't have yet the proof or the evidence that you can do it. These things, these four things that we're going to be talking about today, are going to completely kill your ability to move forward. So becoming aware of them and knowing what they are and how they show up and why we use them and why they don't work is the first step in eliminating them from our repertoire, getting them out of the way, and being able to move forward towards the things that we want to do. So if you're ready to figure out how to take some action, how to do the things that you set out to do, and how to accomplish more in less time, then listen carefully to these confidence killers and start bringing awareness to them. Because once you know that they are in place, once you know that they might be the thing holding you back, then you can start taking steps towards solving that issue. Okay, you ready? Let's just dive right in and figure out what these confidence killers are and how to avoid them.
Hi, welcome to Sincerely Speaking. I'm Marcia Amaro, your self-leadership coach. Now what that means is I'm here to help you rediscover your calling, tap into your greatest potential and strengths, and eliminate those things that keep getting in your way and in the way of your success. So whatever success looks like to you, whether it is in your career, in your business, in your relationships, or in your life in general, I'm here to help you get out of your own way, remove the obstacles, and elevate all of your life to the next level. If you're ready to see everything that you're capable of and see what your life can look like, I invite you to head on over to marciamara.com and set up a 30-minute clarity and confidence call where we will talk about your mission, your vision, your goals, the things that you're here on this planet to create, what might be getting in the way up until now, and some actionable, amazing ways to get out of your own way, to eliminate all those obstacles and reach the level of success that you've been dreaming of. Are you ready? Are you ready for the next level? Then stick around to this conversation of Sincerely Speaking, and then head on over to marciamara.com and schedule your 30-minute call. Can't wait to meet you in person. Chat soon.
So the first confidence killer that we're going to talk about is relying on willpower. Now, a lot of people say just use your willpower, move forward, push through, keep going, don't stop. And while that might sound like good advice, and if you analyze it and you process it in the way that we're going to be talking about, there's some elements to what people mean when they say just push through and use willpower that could serve you. Just relying on willpower alone is actually one of the biggest confidence killers out there. And I will tell you why. Because relying on your ability to push through or forcing yourself to do something brings undue stress, and it's actually a form of self manipulation. We're manipulating ourselves into doing things, we're coercing ourselves into doing things. And while that will work for a short burst of time, it is not sustainable. And so, what happens is we start in this ugly cycle, right, of forcing ourselves to do something, getting it done once or twice and feeling like, oh, yes, I can do this, right? I can do this. And then we fall off the train. We stop doing what we said we were going to do or what we're trying to force ourselves to do. And then we have just collected evidence that our brain is going to store under, see, you're a failure and you can't do this. So anytime we try to use willpower again for something, anything, even if it's not related, our brain is going to take that evidence, pull it out, start the film, start rolling, and it's going to show you evidence to let you know, look, you've tried to use willpower before, you've tried to force yourself to do things, and this is what happens. You don't do them. You do them for a little bit, and then you give up, and then you fall off the wagon, or you stop doing the thing, or whatever the case may be, and you just can't find that same strength to force yourself to move forward, to push yourself to do the thing, right? So just relying on willpower, it's actually going to get you stuck on this cycle of forcing yourself, which causes stress and anxiety, trying for a little bit and maybe getting a day or two of results, then failing to do the thing because on one day you don't have the strength to move forward, or there's something else that distracts you, or there's something else that seems more urgent or more important at that time, and then you don't do it. And then telling yourself, oh, I'm such a failure, and then trying to start over again. And that cycle is a huge confidence killer, because if you understand that confidence is more about trust than anything else, then you can see how trying to rely on willpower and getting stuck in these cycles of trying, doing it for a little bit, then falling off and not doing it and beating yourself up and trying to start over again is just eroding your ability to trust yourself to do whatever it is that you get to do, right? I remember when I was really overweight and I would try to lose the weight. And I would try to rely on willpower. And I would say to myself, no, Marcy, we have to do something about this because you don't feel good about yourself. You're always battling this sense of lack of confidence. And part of it is that you don't even like the way you look. You can't even look at yourself in the mirror. And so, if we can get this weight under control, if we can feel better, if we can be more energetic, if we can do other things, then we will start generating this other sense of confidence, right? And this was before I did a lot of the work, obviously, but I would try to force myself to do things. And I would start on the right track, right? And I would lose a pound or two, and I would get really excited about it. And I'd be like, yes, this is the time. I'm going to do it. This is it. Yes. Right? I would get really, really pumped about it. But then in a week or two, there would be a friend's birthday with cake, or it would be miserable rain outside, and I wouldn't be able to go rollerblade, which was the athletic thing that I liked doing at the time, right? That was my exercise, was rollerblading. Or I would, I don't know, wake up feeling down or angry or upset about something, and I suddenly wouldn't have the inner strength to push myself to do something, and I would just throw my hands up and give up. And then a few weeks later, I would notice that I had gained the 2 or 3 pounds that I had lost, plus another 2 or 3. And then I would beat myself up, get really hard on myself, and get into a space of, oh, it's never going to work. So it would take me further down the slump, right? Further down in the opposite direction of where I wanted to go, so that the next time I tried, it was even harder. to develop that willpower. Can you relate to anything like that? And this is not the space to talk about how I finally got to that space where I could lose the weight, but I will say this. The biggest problem with willpower is that most of the time when you are trying to force yourself to do something, there is a battle between what you are trying to do and how you see yourself, who you see yourself being. So there's a battle between the goal and the identity. And as long as those two things are battling against each other, most often than not, your identity is going to win because your brain is going to try to keep you consistent with who you believe to be, yourself to be. And it's going to give you all the reasons, all the evidence, all the supporting facts to keep you from doing this other thing that is just crashing against your identity or your sense of identity. So that's just a quick one, right? And if you want to learn more about it, there's episodes in the in YouTube or in the podcast that you can look for that where I talk about identity. But for now, just understand that that is one of the main reasons why willpower will kill your confidence, is because most of the time when we are relying on willpower, we are starting a war between our goal and our sense of identity. And anytime that happens, people call it being out of alignment. I call it lacking congruence. And there's a reason why I changed the words. I think alignment sounds a lot like we're relying on something mystical or magical, whereas congruence is something that we can work on putting in place, right? But the fact is that as long as there's that battle going on, as long as there's that war taking place inside of you, trying to use willpower is just going to make it worse. And you're going to feel less and less confident every time you feel like you need to rely on willpower to do something. So that is the first one, is trying to rely on willpower to do the thing. The second confidence killer is misunderstanding responsibility. And I am obviously going to explain this, but when I talk to people about responsibility for the first time, like clients in speaking events and workshops, when I first mention responsibility, people's mind usually goes to blame or fault. So who's to blame? Who's at fault? Who caused this? Who caused this? That is what people equate with responsibility for the most part, right? So if you tell someone that you need to take responsibility for things, the first thought that they have is, but I didn't cause it. It's not my fault. I didn't do this, right? And very often, a lot of my clients have had the response of, well, I already accepted responsibility. I apologized. I told them it was my fault. And I said that I would do better. I already assumed responsibility. Well, that's not the responsibility I'm talking about. And while I'm not going to say that there isn't anything to that, right? Like if you did something that caused somebody else pain or that made something difficult for you or for someone else, own up to it, right? And apologize if you can. If you can't, then work on apologizing to yourself and forgiving yourself. And that's a conversation for another time. And those are all important things. But when I'm talking about misunderstanding responsibility here, here's what I mean. We live in a global community, right? And we have people in contact with us all the time. Even if you're home by yourself, working from home, even if you're single and you don't have a spouse or kids, even if you live on your own, you still have access to a lot of people, whether it is in person or virtually or through social media, you still have access to all these people. Yes, but we are individuals for a reason. We have a family, we have a community, we have a nation, we have our tribes, so to speak, and we support and help each other, but we're still individuals. Yes, so far so good. I don't think I lost anybody there. But when we understand that as individuals, we are responsible for us and our lives and the things that happen in our lives, and everything that we touch is our responsibility, then we can start stepping more into a sense and a feeling of confidence. And I'll explain why. Because responsibility, like I said, is not about blame or fault or who caused the issue. Responsibility is about taking ownership of whatever it is that we might be talking about, right? The example I always give, which I think makes it really clear, and I keep using it because it works, is the difference between buying a house and renting a house. When you are renting a house or an apartment or a living space, there's only so much you can do with that space, right? If you want to paint, you have to ask permission. If something breaks, you have to call the landlord and have them come and fix it or send someone to fix it. If you are uncomfortable with a wall, it doesn't work for the flow of the home, you can't just tear it down because it's not yours. You have to have a conversation with the landlord and see if that's even feasible, right? There's all these limitations to what you can do when you're renting a home. But if you own the home, then whatever you don't like, within reason, you can fix. Whatever you don't like, you can do something about it, right? Whatever you are not comfortable with, you can change. And you don't have to ask anybody's permission. You don't have to wait for anybody to do anything about it. You just take care of it because it is yours. You own it, and therefore it is your responsibility. Yes. So similarly, when I talk about misunderstanding responsibility, people often fall into what is often called victim mode, right? Or this attitude that their life is outside of their control, that they are susceptible and limited by other people and or circumstances. And that happens when you don't know how to take responsibility for your life in the way that we're talking about it, right? It's not everything is my fault. I caused all of it. Everything is because of me. I'm a horrible person and I made all these terrible things happen. That's not what it's about. What it's about is understanding that if something is in your life, if something is within your reach to touch, then you can, because you own it, do something to fix or change it. You don't have to wait for anybody else to come and say, you know what, yeah, you're right, I did this and I'm sorry, because they might never do that. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change. You don't have to play into what circumstances might look like or what other people might expect of you or what other people might be telling you that you need to do. You own it, it's yours, and therefore you get to do what you need to do in order to make it better or to fix it so that it works for you, right? And I know that there's elements to this that might sound weird or selfish, but try it on for size, right? When we are waiting or allowing other people and or circumstances to come and help us out of the situation, to come and change it or to come and fix it, we are giving away the power to do something about it to the only two things in the world that we cannot control, which is other people and circumstances. Those are the only two things we cannot control. And I'm including weather and natural disasters and all that into circumstances, right? That's all things that happen. So why would we, at any point in our lives, give up and surrender the ability to change, alter, or fix something to one of the or two other or the two things that we can't control? Instead, when we assume responsibility, then the immediate question is, okay, what can I do now? What can I do now to start shifting this, to start changing it so that it doesn't feel as heavy, so that it doesn't feel as controlling, so that it doesn't feel as bad? What is one step I can take now? What is something, just anything that I can do to move me forward? How else can I see this so that instead of allowing it to feel heavy inside of me, it allows me to maybe take a different perspective around it and start gleaning the lessons or the gold that might be behind whatever it is that I might be facing, right? I faced some really tough situations, and I know that they are not as tough as some of the ones maybe you have faced. But we have all done hard things before. And if we think back to those moments when we have actually done those hard things, I'm willing to bet that 99.9% of those times you got to the point at some part in the process where you said to yourself, you know what? I get to do something about this. This is mine to work on. This is mine to do something about, even if it isn't. Like I remember When my dad was diagnosed with a terminal illness, I was 13 at the time. And I didn't consciously sit and go, oh, I can do something about this. But I thought to myself, you know what? If this house is not going to collapse, if things are going to continue to progress with dad being sick and mom taking care of him and all these things changing, then I get to do something about it. And I started to think, okay, what is one thing I can do? So I started cooking for the family when mom wasn't around. And I started cleaning up after myself and after my younger sisters that were really young. And I started helping my brothers with other things. And I started doing all these things, not because I wanted credit, not because I was special, but because something inside me clicked that let me know that if I wanted things to be different in any way, shape, or form, I couldn't change the circumstance that my dad was sick, right? I couldn't control how my siblings managed it or how my mom handled it. But what I could do was see what I could do, how I could take responsibility for the part that was mine, for the part that I could play in it. And that changed a lot of the dynamic in myself, in my siblings, in my household. And it made me a better person in the process. So, what have you gone through that you can look back and think, you know what, because I was able to say, you know what can I do? It allowed you to move forward and to see things in yourself and in the circumstance that you hadn't seen before, right? So when we understand responsibility for what it really is, which is ownership, and we start taking steps towards changing the things that we can, that's when we start seeing the opportunity to build confidence instead of killing it. But as long as we stay in that space of not assuming responsibility, of blaming others, of waiting for circumstances to change, then we're not going to experience a sense of confidence. In fact, we're going to experience a lack of confidence because what our brain is going to tell us is, see, there's nothing you can do. And there's no stronger sense of lack of confidence than that feeling of you can't. The last two go really, really close together, but we are going to look at them separately, right? The third confidence killer is trying. And I know that just sounded really strange. What do you mean the lack of confidence comes from trying? What I mean by that is that trying is usually a lack of commitment. To quote the famous philosopher Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. When you tell yourself, I'm going to try, or I'm trying to do something, what you are doing is actually giving yourself an out. What you're doing is excusing why you haven't achieved something or why you haven't done something. And it's excusing why you might not. It's actually giving yourself a space where you can tell people that you are putting in the effort without actually putting in the effort. And the reason we do that is because we don't want to look silly when we say, I'm going to do this, and then we don't. But that in itself is the definition of lack of confidence. When you look at something that you want to do, a goal, an achievement, a step forward, whatever the case may be, and you tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to try. What you're telling yourself and your brain and every part of your being is that you don't believe that you can. And so instead of saying, I'm going to do this and then risk not getting to the destination at the time that you thought, or risk something going wrong, or risk things not looking the way you anticipated they would look as you work towards this thing or as you get closer to it, right? Then you are in a space where you're like, okay, what happens if I don't do it? People are going to think I'm stupid. I'm going to look ridiculous. I'm not going to blah, 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 blah. And you tell yourself all these stories of the what ifs. And so you go back to, or you revert to using the word trying because that makes you feel better. Okay, I'm trying, I'm putting forth the effort, I'm doing something about it. But if it doesn't happen, I was just trying. I never promised anybody that I could. I never said that I was going to do it. I said I was trying, or that I would try. And then you can try one thing and say, see, I tried. And then you give up. So saying that you're trying is automatically setting yourself up for losing confidence and for not doing the thing that you ultimately say you want to do. Now, again, let's go back to responsibility for a second. Own the truth. Maybe the reason you're saying trying is because this is not important to you, or it's not congruent with who you are or who you want to become, or it's just something that is not important to you for whatever reason, and you don't need to give reasons or excuses. That's just the way it is, right? So, what we do for the most part is we start justifying all these things as being attempts to try. But if we just commit, if we say, okay, this is what I am going to do, and this is the reason why this is important, or the reasons why this is important for me right now, this moment, this quarter, this year. And this is the reason why I cannot go into another quarter living like this. This is the reason why I cannot go into another week living like this. This is the reason why I cannot just wait for things to change, or wait for someone else to come help me, or wait for whatever. This is why I have to do something about it now. Then you stop trying and you start doing. You start taking decisive action in the direction of what you want to do. And guess what that does? It builds a sense and an experience, a feeling of confidence inside of you. And the last one, which I said goes really close together with the third one, is that we leave open runways. We leave open runways, and we start suffering from someday syndrome. Have you ever been there? I know I have. Someday syndrome is when you're like, okay, someday I'm going to do this, or I am going to start the business. When? I don't know, someday. I am going to lose the weight. When? Maybe next year. It'll be my next year resolution, maybe. You give yourself too open a runway, too much time, too many open variables that you haven't given your brain answers to. And what ends up happening is that because you have this huge runway that is not defined, you just keep coasting, right? Imagine an airplane that's about to take off. If they had unlimited room to build up the speed that they need, they might just coast. You might actually get to your destination coasting on the runway instead of flying, because the plane will just chill. But go look at an airport runway. It's a very limited space, especially in places like St. Thomas. If you've ever been to the islands, some of those islands have really tiny and really scary runways, because at the end of the runway, it's a cliff or a mountain or something that you're like, we're going to die if this person doesn't take off soon. But the point I'm trying to make is this: they have limited space to build up the momentum, build up the speed, and take off. If they don't do what they need to do before they hit the end of that runway, it's death for a lot of people, or at least very severe injuries for a lot of people. And so what they do is they start from the get-go building that momentum and that speed. In fact, they start building the speed and the momentum before they start moving. If you've ever been in a plane, you know that moment when you're sitting there at one end of the runway and you hear the engine gear up and you hear going, it's the pilot. I did a great impersonation in that. Anyway, it's the pilots working on building that momentum and that speed even before they start moving in the runway, because they know they have limited space to do it. So when we build definite runways, and not only that, we make the runways long enough for us to take off without killing ourselves, but not so long that we feel like we have room to coast, right? They can't be extended runways. Then we build the sense of urgency. And when we have urgency, then we don't have time to procrastinate. Then we don't have time to second guess. Then we don't have time to think about it. Then we don't have time to get distracted by other things, because we get to build this momentum and this speed in this limited runway that we have. Otherwise, right? And the way we build these runways is, first of all, I kind of hinted at it before, but we need to be a little bit unrealistic And I'm going to explain, but we need to be a little bit unrealistic about the amount of time we give ourselves to complete something or to achieve a goal. And here's what I mean by this. There's this law called Parkinson's Law, and it's a law of time management. And it says that tasks will expand to the amount of time allotted to them. I will say that again because I messed it up, but tasks expand to the amount of time allotted to them. So if you give yourself a week to do something, it's going to take you at least a week. It might take you more for the most part, right? But if you give yourself 3 days to do the same thing, chances are very high you're going to get it done in the 3 days. In fact, you might get it done sooner than the 3 days because now you feel compressed for time. And that pressure is good pressure that forces you to put your head down, stay focused, don't allow distractions, and just stick with it until you get it done, right? So when we give ourselves a shorter amount of time to get things done, that is when we can speed up and accelerate this whole process of getting things actually done. And the more we experience getting to the end result, getting to that thing that we committed to doing, the more we experience the sensation of, oh, I can trust myself to do things. I can trust myself to do hard things. I can trust myself to do things quickly. I can trust myself to determine how short a runway I can use in order to get this thing done. And that bubbles up and builds into this newfound sense of confidence, right? The other element here in the open runway and shortening that runway or making sure that we don't fall prey to someday syndrome is putting skin in the game, is making sure that there are clear consequences. Yes, clear rewards are wonderful, and you should have those too. But if we have rewards or potential rewards without potential consequences, then what we do is like, I can live without that. It's fine. Yeah, like my reward for doing was that I was going to take myself to get a mani-pedi. But you know what? It's fine. I can just paint my nails at home and my feet are not that bad. It's okay. I can live without the mani-pedi. And we just settle into the space of conformity and of being content in the wrong way, right? Of what's the word I'm looking for? Of becoming complacent. That's what I'm looking for with whatever it is that we have, and we don't strive for more. But when there are consequences that we don't want to face, when there is loss to be had, when there's pain that is going to come from not doing the thing, then we're inspired and motivated. Then we don't give ourselves an out so easily, right? So put some skin in the game. Tell someone that you don't want to disappoint, that you're going to do this thing, and have them ask you questions. Like people erroneously say, have them hold you accountable. Nobody can hold you accountable except for yourself because accountability and responsibility are the same thing pretty much. And it's from the inside out. Okay. So let's just get that out of the way. But have them ask you about it, right? Have them make you a little bit uncomfortable by knowing that you have to report to them your progress once a week or whatever the case may be. Post it on social media. How much pressure would that be, right? Maybe put some money on it. Like I've known people, I once coached a couple that was trying to lose weight, and they were both trying to lose weight because their sugar levels, anyway, there were all these reasons why they needed to lose weight. And I was coaching them together. And one of the things that we came up with as a plan of action was that they would put some money into a jar every week. They would put $5, I think it was, every week into a jar as they worked through things. And as they would just put $5 into a jar every week. When the time that they had allotted for the whatever the amount of weight that they wanted to lose was, I think it was, if I remember correctly, she wanted to lose 10 pounds and he wanted to lose 18 pounds within a month period, right? And so they would put the money there every week for the month, and then at the end of the month they were each putting $5 in, so it was $40 in the jar at the end of the month. And so what they were going to do is, if they lost the weight, if they met their goal weight, both of them, then they would use that money to go buy themselves a new pair of pants, or I don't remember what it was. No, to take themselves to the movies. That's what it was. So they would pay for a date with the money from the jar. But if they made it to the month and they did not lose the weight, if they didn't reach their goal weight for the month, then they would take that money and donate it to a charity or do something with it that was painful. They would give away the money. They wouldn't get to enjoy the money themselves, right? And so there was a reward and a punishment, so to speak, a cost to not doing the thing. And so when you are looking at something that you want to do, when you're looking at feeling confident for yourself, if you don't put some skin in the game, if you don't see any consequences to not doing it, if you don't see the cost of staying where you are, then you are not going to start taking action towards the thing. And the more you allow yourself to backtrack, the more you allow yourself to say, you know what, this is really important, I gotta do this, blah, blah, blah. And then a week later, you're convincing yourself that it's not that important. A week after that, you're like, you know what, it's okay. I've been fine this far. Let's just keep going. And a week after that, you just completely give up on it. That kills your confidence. That kills your ability to trust yourself the next time, right? So, just to recap and to wrap this up, when we're looking at the confidence killers, we're looking at four main things. The first one is relying on willpower. Can't be done, at least not sustainably, at least not in a way that elevates your sense of confidence. Secondly, misunderstanding responsibility and not assuming responsibility the right way. Like when you own it, you can fix it. You can step out of that victim mentality where people and circumstances control what you are and are not able to do. So misunderstanding responsibility is a confidence killer, because then you are a slave to other people and or circumstances. Not good. Third, trying. That lack of commitment. I'm gonna try. I'll try. I'm trying. See, I tried. It gives you an out that is not a positive one, and that is going to lacerate and kill your confidence. And then finally, I'm sorry about that, I thought it was off. Keeping an open runway, or falling prey to the someday syndrome, which is just not giving yourself a short enough runway, giving yourself too much time, too much space to try, and or not putting any skin in the game. Just thinking, you know what, it would be a nice thing, but if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Put some skin in the game. Make it painful. Make it hurt if you don't get there. All right. So I hope this has been absolutely helpful for you. If you are looking to expand that feeling of confidence, if you are looking to get to the place where you can create that sense and that feeling of confidence when you need it and where you need it, if you're tired of people telling you that you need more confidence, but they don't tell you how to get that confidence. If you are just at a spot where you know that you know that you know, it's time to stop using lack of confidence as an excuse, or stop feeling like you're missing something because you quote unquote don't have the confidence to move forward, then I have a special, very special offer for you. Go right now to confidence.marcyamaro.com. confidence.marcyamaro.com. And right there, you're going to find all the information on my Confidence on Demand course, which is going to give you the 3 simple steps so that you can create a sense of confidence when you need it, where you need it the most. All right, so go to confidence.marcyamaro.com, and I will see you next time on Sincerely Speaking. Bye-bye.